Today is Friday, May the 13th. And it's an interesting situation. A lot is happening in Chicago. We have the overhead here, but I don't think I want to do that. We're going old school today for a minute with some newspapers, because some of what I was looking for, I have not been able to find on this device, so I wanted to use the newspapers to sort of just emphasize the fact that there's a reference. But before we get to that, I just need to say this here. There's a situation a couple of nights ago down in what I'm gonna call the Loop of Chicago, where once again a bunch of young people was down there doing what they want to do. And then there'll be two of those pieces.
One person.
Those pieces will be basically redundant, but they are viewpoints from two different news stations. And I think it's important to get the overlap and yet to get some of the differences. Then there's a piece we're gonna go to Florida to get that deal with mothers and how they act. So the first three pieces you will see will deal with how people act. Apparently, in Chicago, the police and others already know when these people are going to be downtown
Last night's
with their takeovers. Apparently, they got their social media system and they say they organize, but they put the word out. We're gonna go down and we're gonna take it over. We're gonna do whatever in the hell we wanna do, and these damn adults ain't gonna do nothing about it, but let us do it. That's what it boils down to. And these damn adults, the administration and the police, they do just that. Let them do what in the hell they wanna do, and that's it. But they know they're gonna do it. And that's interesting. And you wonder, what happened to the boundaries? What happened to, you can't do this, huh? What is all of this cuddling of criminals? I mean, what's up? Well, they ain't criminals, I guess you're right. Because I saw in one of these things here, dude in the lottery, not the lottery, and tearing up downtown, looting. Let me just show it to you. Damn it. This here, 15 months. Here's a dude get 15 months for going downtown, just having his way. So whatever he got, 15 months is not a deterrent. And you wonder why. That's one of the reasons why. So let me just say this here. It's a very difficult thing to, hold on for a minute here. It's very difficult to understand why people don't seem to understand what is happening. Now we trying to figure out in my mind how to go from overhead to the other, but that's just too much energy. I don't feel like expending all that energy. So when I hold the paper up, you get the point. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. You can see it. 15 months for being down there, acting a damn fool, tearing into people's place, and taking their goods, and all you can do is give him 15 months. Why is that? It don't make sense. What's happening? But what am I seeing? That's how you want to do? Okay, so, but that's gonna make me move way over though, okay. All right, so what we gonna, so now, Amari came in here to show you how to do this. We're gonna try to get this over here. And what you're gonna see me do right now is put things in order. Yeah, that's old school, and ain't nobody got time to sit here and try to make things look pretty for you. I'm gonna reach over here, I'm gonna put these things the way I want them brought up, and you will see it for what it is, instead of me trying to hold it up. There it is. So you can watch this. Now you can be all fancy and say, well, why didn't he this and that? Don't worry about why I didn't do this and that. Just understand what we're doing. And that is, we're gonna refer to some things here, and it's gonna be easier for Omari to just show you this stuff the way he showed it to you, or whatever it is. I can point to it. Now the bottom line is this. Back to that $1,500. The 15 months for loitering downtown. That ain't no price to pay. It ain't. So that's what happens. Same thing with these young'uns down there acting a fool. In the middle of the week, downtown clowning. I think maybe one of them was arrested. You'll hear that in the video. Now this other thing you see here, just get through with all these overheads. Now they done seems like they done cut a secret deal where the public don't know nothing yet, other than they don't want the public to have to participate in the election to determine the wards in June. So now they've cut some type of deal that's going to give, I guess, the so-called Negroes a certain amount of wards and the Spanish-speaking a certain amount, and on and on and on. It's a hell of a thing, ain't it? Transparency, huh? They go in the back room and they come out and say, this is what we doing. Now they got some of these daggone wars they say gonna be, I mean, they ain't gonna make no sense. They don't have nothing in common other than to keep some sucker that's elected. That's what I said, some sucker that's elected that have not demonstrated that they can take care of people right on the block they live in. So now you got them with blocks all over town talking about the alderman. Hell, if you don't have enough wards because you don't have enough people, then cut back the number of wards you got. If you're supposed to have 50-some thousand people in a ward and you don't have 1,500, then the person that's over the 1,500, dude, you out of a job. Go sit your behind down. The hell you talking about, I want a ward. Dude, you don't qualify for a ward. Don't care if you black, Hispanic, white, Asian, don't care. If you don't have enough people, go sit down. They got too many wards anyhow. You walking around here like you some big shot, but you ain't representing nobody. The few people in the area you live, you don't even represent them because you must not be driving down the street. Because if you were, you would be doing something about the raggedy streets. You must not be living on the block. If you were, you'd be out there ahead of the people with a broom and a rake, helping to clean up the block. So a lot of y'all just getting paid big money to be a so-called big shot. And now you're going back, you were talking about the so-called city black alderman map, then the so-called Hispanic alderman map. But then you were trying to whisper about the Madigan map. But now it seemed to come out that the Madigan map is basically the map that's going to actually be the map. But now you're saying that Madigan has been stripped of his power. He retired. So now you out there running your mouth, well, Madigan was this. Madigan was a politician. All of y'all should go sit at Madigan's feet. Maybe you'll learn how to be a damn alderman and stop running around just sucking up the money. That's what you're doing. You tell me, I mean, you cowards. You scared that the voters gonna go out and they gonna vote and one of you all gonna come up short and you're gonna be embarrassed. So now you come up with what you say is, I guess, a compromise or a better map. Okay, come on with it. But at the end of the day, I guess you've already made your decision that the voters ain't got nothing to do with it. Just do what we tell you and everything cool. That brings me to the next piece about y'all. This is just straight up old school conversation before we get into this new school technology. Black man running for governor. White man then gave him about $40 million. He said he believed in Black Lives Matter. Any black man believed that Black Lives Matter. And he said he believed in all lives matter. Any man or woman should believe that all lives matter. But now you running around running your mouth that you don't want to vote for him because he is now saying, louder than he was saying, Black Lives Matter, that all lives matter. What's wrong with that? There's no contradiction in what he's saying. You say that means that now he's been bought. Yeah, with $40 million, you damn right he's been bought. He's supposed to say that. He's been funded. But that ain't got nothing to do with him not being qualified to be governor. That has nothing to do with him being a Republican or not. What the problem is, y'all, is that you distracted, you misdirected. You're dealing with foolishness. People can go in neighborhoods and just tear them up, loot, do all type of stuff. No consequence. You know, and then a black person find grace and somehow a white man, rich white man, give him money. So he don't have that excuse that I couldn't compete because I didn't have the money. Now the excuse that the Negro is giving him, I don't like him, he's a Republican. What difference would it make, dude? Republican or Democrat, hell, you ain't been getting nothing and probably ain't gonna get no more or no less. But what would happen if you would stop being cowards? If you Negroes just deviate from the script for a minute, instead of running behind Pritzker or anybody else that's running and take you for granted, do something different for yourself. Don't think about this other man being a Republican. Think about him being somebody that might be able to show a point that needs to be made. And that is, we ain't gonna take it anymore. So if we don't elect him, if all of us Negroes voted for that person that got the 40 million, that would take enough votes away from the people that think they're gonna automatically get it anyway and take you for granted. Then the next time around, and you're gonna get something out of the dude if you get elected. Next time around, everybody will know that we're going to talk to these folks and treat them like they're worthy, or they will not put us in office or put us back in office. You got to sacrifice at some point. And now you got a great opportunity to sacrifice because the man is financed. And he can't be no worse than nobody that's been or nobody that's going to be. Can't. But it's a great opportunity where you got a financed Negro that could run statewide, could make it a decent race. But you're so busy rapping the man, and you don't even know him, most of you. He's from down there in Aurora somewhere. But you just running your mouth. Why? Because the Democratic so-called, it ain't no machine no more. Masters just got you programmed. There it is. Last piece with this rich man. This rich man, you can see it if you look hard enough, strange. This rich man is giving up some serious millions to train the police. I think. He giving up millions to finance a person, which is a Negro, to run for governor. He giving up millions to train the police, which really abuses and neglects the Negro. You know, do you really think anybody do anything for free? I don't know. Maybe he's just a good-hearted white man. Maybe he got ulterior motives. But he's removing excuses. 25 million or whatever it said to train the police, law enforcement. So you can't lie. Government training you, and now he, private citizen, 25 million. Ought to be the best police in the world. Negroes, we can't get nobody elected because we ain't got the money. He said, okay, I'm giving this dude $40-some million. Do something with him. Now all you're gonna do is just sit back, get on the radio, and cry, talk, and go, go somewhere and sit down and be quiet. You know what I'm saying? Now, brother, show these young'uns downtown because I'm tired of talking. But I wanted to get that in because I needed those newspapers to be seen, and I'm gonna do a little bit more of that.
Was shared widely on social media, and according to city officials, the police were aware of the so-called North Avenue Beach takeover. Tonight, Chicago's 43rd Ward alderman praising police for how they handled hundreds of people pouring onto the streets of Old Town. Many residents just want to make sure it doesn't happen again.
No one got hurt, no policeman got hurt, no adolescent or young adult got hurt. That is a successful plan.
Tonight, 43rd Ward Alderman Michelle Smith touting the police response to this. Hundreds of people spilling onto the streets of Old Town Wednesday night after what she said was the result of police dispersing an illegal takeover of North Avenue Beach. At a meeting tonight, residents joining Chicago police and other city leaders to discuss what happened and the effort to make sure it doesn't happen again.
And there had to be a tremendous reallocation of resources by the police in the neighborhood. There are probably more important places for the police to be than breaking out some kind of a problem on a beach.
Old Town residents watched from their homes as hundreds of people gathered on the streets below.
My understanding is that the police picked up the fact that there was this party. They were ready for it. I think when they dispersed people from the beach, it didn't quite turn out as they wanted it to.
Tonight, Alderman Smith says in the future, closing the beach would not be the best idea because so many other Chicagoans would be affected.
It's a bad plan to erect barricades that then you're kind of putting people in a position of what are we supposed to do?
Police arrested an 18-year-old and charged him with reckless conduct. Authorities say he ignored police orders. There were no injuries reported. Alan?
Now I think them white folks tired of this, man. They are. They ought to be. Negroes say, well, we've been tired of it all the time. Da 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 da. You right. Now this is gonna be the same thing. Just look at that headline and listen to this. They say it's absolute chaos. Mob of teens overtake Chicago streets. Wild video shows. Nah, that's a hell of a thing. You know what I'm saying? Then you got administration. I mean, like they don't care. They just clueless.
Talk about that huge
Play
disruption
that,
on the city's north side now. A large group of teens gathered, and yes, things got out of control. Joni is live with the aftermath in Old Town. And Joni, a lot of people are wondering this morning, is this a bad sign of summer trouble ahead?
Well, it felt like summer yesterday, and maybe that's why they were gathering. And I've looked on social media, and the organizers of this party have something planned for tomorrow night in another neighborhood, so expect more. People here in Old Town say it was like mayhem here, with kids out in the streets until 2 a.m. They had shut down major intersections right around North Avenue and Clark Street. A lot of videos shared on social media last night of teenagers who were gathering on North Avenue after they walked over from the beach. Hundreds were in the streets. Some were seen jumping on cars and CTA buses. The event was billed as a takeover of North Avenue with a promise of being seen on video. Well, they were, by security officers who were working in the area who say that their residents did not like all this activity.
Maybe over on the Shell, right on North Avenue, a lot of kids just swarming. There were no fights. They were just, walking around, lounging around. They kind of didn't want to leave. The police were here to make sure that everyone was safe.
Well, that security guard said that she kept an eye on things with her cameras and saw maybe about 400 people out in this intersection. Chicago police, they say they were here to just monitor the crowd, keep everything safe. They say no one was hurt and no one was arrested. Back to you, Terrence.
Well, no one hurt, no one arrested. That's good. And it appears that they got some different type of security. Woman standing there talking. Seem to have a good, friendly personality. All of that's good. And I think these are good things. Now, Mari, if you can find that piece where them women's out there in the street fighting, don't play the audio, though. Just show a brief little piece. It's down there on that screen a little bit. But these are mothers. The mothers that could be the mothers of these young'uns downtown acting a fool. These are mothers like the mothers we showed you last week. You understand me? At this thing, trying to be the greatest BITCHs there is. Right there, Amara. Just let people see this, and I can comment on it. What you see here is a bunch of people on Mother's Day. These are grown people. These are women. This is how grown folks act. And then you wonder why children acting like they act. And then you wonder why he showed this. I show it because that's what you do. That's why your kids are like they are. Walking around with all that horsetail on your head, trying to be nice. Look at you. grown women. I mean, what do we do, man? How did you come from this? Children that you are allowing to take over downtown, to take over anywhere, to do what they want to do, this is what they come out of. And this is what they're going to grow into unless somebody stand up and go back to some old school boundaries. You cannot let society become what you see. Now, if you heard the video, you would really understand the flavor. But we try not to use the video because I'm telling you, anything I put up here, YouTube, Facebook, all these folks, they want to talk about community sadness, like I'm doing something real crazy. But then they say, well, you didn't violate the standards, but da-da-da-da-da-da, we da-da-da-da. Ain't this a trip? So maybe if we don't show the video, you don't talk about copyright, you don't talk about your standards, we just show you the behavior. Because we're trying to get our people to stop being stupid. But hell, we catch hell just to get it out here so you can see it ahead. Oh, I ain't complaining, I ain't crying, I ain't whining, I'm just telling you what we know. And what we know is they don't want you to do no better. They want you to go places and have conventions where you walking around leaving your kids in the streets of Chicago and other places acting like fools. And you down there, wherever you are, acting like fools. And that's the woman. All of this stuff you pumping up the woman about, you should be trying to pump up the woman about being a good mother. Because when the woman was a halfway decent mother, we didn't have all of this. But now, look what we got. Now it's a terrible situation. And one of the things we need to understand, and we're going to look at this piece to talk about Black Lives Matter, Omari, because what happens is this. It's a sadness because, you know, the mayor over there in New York, he knew. He's trying to find his rhythm. He's a former police official, brass, and he talking. But the continuity and the similarity, I think, fits. But it's back to the Black Lives Matter piece that we really need to deal with. Yes, sir, brother. Show that.
For being silent and not protesting rising shootings and murders that have impacted the African-American community. Watch.
If Black Lives Matters, then the thousands of people I saw on the street when Floyd was murdered should be on the street right now stating that the lives of these black children that are dying every night matters. We can't be hypocrites.
Democrats have been trying to pivot away from defund the police and embrace law and order as rising crime becomes a huge issue in the midterms. Just look at this insane scene in Los Angeles. A woman chased down after leaving a jewelry store, hit by a car, the thieves making off with her watch. Police say street gangs have been targeting residents in wealthy areas. Does the mayor have a point here, Lawrence? And are we seeing blatant hypocrisy play out in communities that are not adequately protected?
I mean, the mayor's just saying what black people have been saying for a while now. To his credit, he has been critical of Black Lives Matter before. But let's be very clear of who was funding Black Lives Matter, because it was not black people that was funding Black Lives Matter. It was white corporations and white people funding them because they didn't want to do the work in the community. Black people said, we just want equal justice under the law. In return, people supported the organization when we never really supported the organization. They promised $50 billion to the organization. Now you got Patrice Cullors going out there saying that the IRS is targeting them when we know they've gone after the Tea Party and every other group. I just think that there's a lesson to be learned about Black Lives, because I think the organization is officially dead right now. They took the theme of what black people were feeling and turned it into their own little money cash cow. I think that this is the end for them. And I think it should be a lesson to people. Do the work. Don't think you can just cut a check and somehow things are just going to disappear.
All right, but how do you keep kids safe?
Well, you got to support your law enforcement. My My criticism is, why would you even call them out? You're asking charity and help from a Ponzi scam, and we all know what it is. They're not going to help anyone. They help themselves. And then you're going to see when they go to jail, it's not going to be brothers and sisters across the country having to turn checks back in or school books and computers back in that they bought and didn't do their taxes on. No, they're going to be auctioning off their mansions, their cars, their planes, because it was the ugliest part of any culture group, not just blacks. Whites got to deal with it too. They crazy. They say we're here for the people, and they're there to load their pockets and move their own agendas at the expense of everyone else. So he shouldn't even wasted his time mentioning Black Lives Matter, because they've never come out to support black-on-black crime, to support poverty, to support brothers who can't afford lawyers. They've never done that. The only time they've come out is when you have a white cop and a black suspect in an issue that goes wrong, because that gets attention, that gets super elitists to write checks, and that gives them the right to do and say anything. And that's the only time they come out, period, because it's a good way, it's a good hustle.
All right, so when will we find our way? Because you had a lot of people in the streets protesting in the summer of 2020. They wanted to make their voices heard. They wanted to do the right thing, and they wanted to be allies. But you also had, with that, the defund the police movement that did so much harm, not only to law enforcement, but the most vulnerable communities when there wasn't as much proactive policing. Now, the president and some moderate Democrats are trying to backtrack on that. And they're trying to say, no, now we need to fund the police. So how do we find our way out of this?
We just listened to Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn always understands certainly where the pulse of the Democratic Party is, but really the middle of the country, what turned into to be the Biden coalition, right? The moderate Republicans, the independents, and the Democrats who could come together in agreement on this issue. And he said to people like Representatives Cori Bush and Ilhan Omar, stop talking about these things. It's not even actually what you mean. You know, you're talking about people who represent communities where I guess that's fine for them, but that is not the overwhelming percentage of communities that have a large black or brown population. And it was really interesting. Pew just released new numbers on the top priority issues for black Americans. Number one, violence and crime at 17%. Number two, economic issues at 11%. If you look at the numbers for white Americans, it's reversed. We all know that inflation and cost of living, et cetera, are the top priorities there. And the Democrats are sitting here thinking we're heading into a midterms where we could lose up to, you know, some people are projecting up to 60 seats. These are the kinds of issues that on the fence voters are looking for you to pay attention to them about. And black voters, I'm not saying that they're going to go and suddenly support Republicans. Only about 10% ideas Republicans. But it can't make you stay home if you don't feel like.
Why did they support the organization, though? I'm just curious why white companies decided to give their money to these organizations when black people never said that they supported. There was a cause, not the organization. They want to get rid of black men out of the households. I don't understand how you can stand for black men in the street and then want to remove them out of the household.
All right,
I think that there's a
virtue signaling.
Judge Jessica talks about the Biden coalition, which is completely fallen apart. And if you look at the most recent Quinnipiac poll, 26% of Latino respondents support the president. That is an incredibly low number. So, you know, he's turned his back on a lot of people, including the cops, and he was running for president. Is this the way for him to get out of an incredible slump?
It's too late. It's too late. Biden's not getting out of the slump. I disagree. Clyburn doesn't have an answer. Clyburn never said, don't defund the police. He never said you got to refund the police. Let's be real clear on that. You want to read between the lines, you can do that, but you can't do it here. Number one, there's a difference between the organization and the movement, okay? We all believe in the movement. The organization was a bunch of shysters, okay? We've got Patricia Cullors who bought at least 3 houses. She bought one that was for sale for $3.1 million. She bought it a week later at $2.7 million more for $5.8 million. Who got that $2.7 million? I don't know. She put it in the name of a shell corporation. That famous law firm, the Democrat law firm Perkins Coie, did the shell corporation. She lived in it. She hid it from the Black Lives Matter organization for 19 months. All right? And she didn't let anyone know that she had purchased it. Now, as for Eric Adams, this is the first time I heard this guy talk about black-on-black crime. And Mayor, it's about time. It's about time you recognize that that is the biggest problem in the criminal justice system. And maybe it's because, as you said, you were up all night, and now you're facing it for real. Everybody assumed because he was a cop and a police captain, he got it. Well, he didn't get it until he finally said it. Number 3, you've got to refund the police because we've got a 60% spike in crime. I don't want to hear about women being almost run over by gangs in Los Angeles, and it's happening here because they're wearing a watch that someone wants, because criminals are emboldened, because Democrats were silent in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter burning of streets and peaceful protests. And now this is what we're left with. And it's time to get back on the straight and narrow. Consequences for criminals, change the cash bail laws, refund the police, and put some organization into law enforcement and let everybody know, you cross the line, your ass is going to jail.
Enough said.
All right, Judge.
Hopefully
All
you'll
right,
find
she
your passion
absolutely
on
right.
this topic at some
Enough
point.
said. You know, it was good. I'm glad Amari let that play out. See, you think I just be here cranking. No, other people saying the same thing I'm saying. Because people got enough sense to know that what's going on is insane. It makes no sense. So we need to get back to common sense. The whole country is just like a nursing home. Why? Because the person you got running it look like that's where he lived. Look like that's where he should be. Chicago is just, it's pathetic. I don't even want to try to describe what Chicago. Leadership. Anytime you have impotent leadership, you're going to have a limp in society because something is hanging off wrong. And that's what we got here. Grown folks have stopped standing up and establishing boundaries. You don't just let young folks say, we're going to do a takeover of anything. No, you don't. You don't. I went into a school today because kids supposed to be at school. This is grammar school, and I've been observing last few days. 9 females come a block from the school after going to the campus, cross busy street to come another block to meet a couple of friends. Luckily, they all friendly. And then they go to the store. So I go to the school and I say, look, woo, woo, woo. Dad noticed something was up too. Boundaries. Once they are on the campus, they don't supposed to leave because something could happen to one of them. But what we have done as grown folks is backed up and don't say nothing. And you got the audacity to think that all grown folks supposed to do is observe and report. Just watch and be a snitch. You don't supposed to intervene. You don't supposed to mediate. You don't supposed to prevent. You're just supposed to be a snitch and go to somebody that don't know a damn thing about what's going on and let them tell you what to do. But until that, just observe and report. How stupid. Let them tear up, kill up, observe and report. Those are the things that we need to deal with. So it's good to see that this man, Adams, is looking at and speaking, like the commentator said, something we all knew. That whole thing, I mean, come on, man. I mean, it's so stupid, Black Lives Matter. Who need to be told that? That was some white folks giving these 3 musketeers, these 3 stooges, money to misdirect the gullible. Because anybody from the get, I'm telling you, my generation, how do an elder like me say Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter? All lives matter, you damn idiot. There is no difference between the worth of a life. Oh yeah, the police and other people, not only racists on the white side, but fools on the black side. Use that as a reason to devalue life, but all lives matter. And now we're going into a race for a governor, and that's becoming an issue because Negro was talking about, he said all lives matter. He's telling you the truth, you creature. Now the next piece here, and then we're gonna move on because I know they got other things to do here, and it's getting hot, and they probably gonna get back to their schedule. Now, and then I'm gonna say this before you hear this video. 10 Chicago gang members charged for dealing with some dope. You know, these people ought to be shaming themselves. Okay, you charge them. What about the people that the black people got the dope from to do that? Because the black people ain't making no dope. The black people ain't going to China. The black people ain't going to Mexico. Those people are coming from China. Those people are coming from Mexico. Those people are meeting with black people that you see out here and you think is a big deal to talk about some 10 people that you done locked up and called out the little gang that they in. Talk about how many of them cartel people and how many of them Chinese people that you locked up too that were supplying the dope. Then another piece we want you to look at is that the DEA found a whole bunch of dope. Talk about that. And then we want to tie in this casino that's coming up. Now the reason I run these three off back to back is to give Omari time to find them because we're trying a new system. Now, as you can see, the energy is what it is. We're going to be going back to newspapers. We're going to be doing whatever we have to do to try to bring some more energy. I've been looking. My energy has been too mild. I've been being a little bit too correct. No, I just got to let it flow. Let it hit where it hit. If you can't handle it, move around. Then we want to look at this thing about the casinos. You know, because they're going to say something that's going to be so pathetic, but it's going to be such a reflection of this administration. This administration is such an embarrassment, such a disappointment. Play this, man.
Investigation.
Nate Rogers is live with the details of this. Nate.
Yeah, that's right, guys. We're told from February of last year to this past April, numerous undercover purchases of narcotics were made from suspects now in custody. Take a look at the photos on your screen right now. This was a multi-year drug probe by Homeland Security and Chicago police. Officials say they recovered multiple kilograms of suspected heroin, some of which was laced with fentanyl and cocaine. Also, a number of weapons recovered, including rifles, handguns, a MAC-10 submachine gun, and more than 450 rounds of ammunition. All of this stemming from 3 open-air drug markets in the West Garfield Park neighborhood. Authorities say 38-year-old Nathaniel Evans of Aurora directed the operation, supervising all 3 locations.
What we kind of generally see, both in Chicago and elsewhere, is a lot of the drugs that we're seeing that are being sold on the street are laced with fentanyl. It's because it's very powerful. It is a way for drug traffickers and people selling in this format to be able to make the drugs more powerful, which is something that a lot of the users want.
Authorities also telling us these 10 suspects are allegedly members or associates of the Four Corner Hustlers street gang. Also, those 10 men now facing federal charges for conspiring to distribute heroin and cocaine. In addition, more than 20 people now facing state charges for these drug offenses. We're live outside of the Dirksen Federal Building. Nate Rogers, Fox 32, Chicago.
Now, I guess that's good news. Last night when I was driving home from somewhere, I passed by this open drug market, place where one of the West Side aldermen said they weren't drug dealers, they was entrepreneurs. So he said the area, so I was thinking, I had looked at this piece, so I was expecting it to be different. But when I drove down the street, they were still out there doing what they've been doing. I said, damn. And it's the same organization. And most of the time the police be sitting there. So they take a year for the police to sit there, for police to be undercover. They take a year for people to get killed. They take a year for all of that crime and death and misery to be allowed. And then you arrest 10 people, and then put him over for less charges, state versus fed. See, that's stupid. You done took a year. How many people have been killed? How many people have overdosed? You're investigating, but your result don't add up. It don't. Something really changed. And I said it, and I'm gonna say it again. Those X-File, X-generation people, really, when they was being conceived, they must have really been looking at that movie, X-Files, where Mulder and Scully was trying to figure out where them aliens was coming from. Because you had to be in space. Because now you are in positions of power. And you want to ridicule the baby boomers, saying they was baby machines. And that's how you all them babies, but y'all better. They was flower children. Well, that's how you got the social movement. That's where it came from. But those that came after, what did you produce? Some millenniums. They ain't figured out what it is yet. And a millennium take all of those thousands of years. So you see, now you got some zillions, or whatever the hell that means. All of these old fake names, but there's no adults. Where are the grown people? Where are the grown people? It's a shame. Regardless of what generation you from, there should be adults that know there are boundaries. You can sell dope anywhere. Woman walked off into a spot the other day, came into a school, they turned her back. She was so, man, she was just ridiculous. I mean, the whole place lit up, stinking. But it's legal. Now that it's legal, you can go anywhere. But some places can't have you coming in there. So think about the children that come home, go home, and everybody in the house smoking dope and it's legal. But damn, who gonna tell the kid that it's wrong? It might be legal, but that don't make it right. So the kid grow up thinking that it's all right to walk around stinking. It's crazy. And those are basic, old school principles that need to be back into order. There's a person keep calling the radio and he's right. And he make more sense than a lot of people. Where is your code of conduct? That's what society needs, is a code of conduct. Because everything in place, they have disregarded it. The governor signing a bill today, him and Razul, whoever, Attorney General, they signing something talking about some more rules or laws about when you steal something. You already got the rules, but you don't enforce the rules. And because you don't enforce the rules, your grandchildren and great-grandchildren and children are just out of control. And just like you saw last week, those females, all naked and stanky looking. And then you saw this one today, those big old, those last week, at least some of them had a little something. They had work done on their bodies, or they was just flapping, woo. But them there, man, them women there, boy, they out there in them streets fighting like that. They big as them damn trees. Somebody got hurt. But that's what happens now. And it happens because there are no codes of conduct, because law enforcement has just bagged up. Politicians are from a different generation. And the generation that the politicians are from now, they don't value old-fashioned law. They don't. They don't value consideration. They don't value principles. They don't. They just let them do what they want to do. You don't let things do what they want to do. You don't. You can't just let teenagers and children and criminals do what they want to do. Because some of them will do you out of here. The other day, 82-year-old man on the red line, 16-year-old savage, walk up and knock him down and take his stuff. That's because you allow that, society. He knew he could do it. But what about the poor 82-year-old man that God had granted life to? But in his script for life, there was that day where he would be standing somewhere and some 16-year-old savage would come up and knock him down. That was already written. So he lived for that to happen to him. And yet, there's probably no consequence because they will probably never find the savage that assaulted that elder, that senior citizen, that old man. And society say, don't fight back. Let the damn criminal kill you, old man. Don't you kill him, because if you do, we gonna have your head. You know? 64-year-old man in his yard, watering his grass. What happened? Bullet come, kill him. And this damn administration don't say nothing. They just act like ain't nothing happening. They blame the bullets. They blame Trump. All right, man, moving right along, because, you know, today, there's a whole lot of freelance on my lips today. Let's move on down to this DEA zeroes in on China and fentanyl. See what these folks saying they're going to do to China. How they going to go about stopping China from sending all that death, stopping Mexico from sending all that death, and they can only lock up 10 folk on the hustlers. You really shouldn't be locking them up. Hell, you should be locking them and the other ones you finna talk about.
Overdose crisis and what's considered by the DEA to be the primary drug threat facing this country, fentanyl. The leading cause of death for Americans between 18 and 45 isn't COVID, it's not car accidents, it's fentanyl overdoses. And the threat for teens is even more concerning. On this first ever National Fentanyl Awareness Day, we talk exclusively with DEA Chief Ann Milgram about how the agency is zeroing in on where the killer drug is coming from. It's stunning to think that more than 3/4 of all teen overdose deaths last year involved fentanyl.
It's stunning. We worry a lot about teens and young adults for a variety of reasons. One, social media. We know that these fake counterfeit prescription pills are widely available on social media. If your child is on TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook, drug dealers can access them there, and that it's almost like Uber Eats, being able right now in America to get a fake pill delivered to your doorstep.
You're saying that teens can get these drugs just as easy as they can order something through Uber Eats?
There's no question. By and large, they're not going out looking for fentanyl. They're looking for a Xanax or an Adderall or an Oxy, thinking that they're going to get a prescription pill. They're not thinking at all that they're going to get a pill that contains fentanyl, where just 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a lethal dose.
Administrator Milgram took us inside one of the DEA labs analyzing the killer concoction.
We even have young people who take half a pill like this and die from it.
You just need a very, very small amount of fentanyl to cause great harm.
Yes, the amount that could be on the tip of a pencil is enough to kill someone.
The DEA is now trying to prevent fentanyl from being made, focusing on the ingredients.
Just as you couldn't have an explosive bomb without explosives, you can't have a chemical drug without chemicals.
Administrator Milgram told us the materials are made in China, shipped to Mexican cartels before getting to the border. CBS News has learned the DEA seized 2,100 pounds of precursor chemicals. That's enough to make 1 billion potentially lethal doses. That's a huge seizure, up to 1 billion doses that you wiped off the street. But how many got through?
This is what we worry about. And that's part of why we are so focused right now on stopping the chemicals coming out of the Chinese chemical companies.
China's to blame.
Chinese chemical companies are the largest producer right now of the precursor chemicals that are being used to make fentanyl. There's a relationship between these Chinese chemical companies and the criminal cartels in Mexico.
Republicans say it's President Joe Biden's border policy is the reason we have a drug crisis in America.
I think it's important to talk about the border, and I can say with 100% assurance that the criminal drug cartels in Mexico will stop at nothing to get fentanyl into the United States. The second piece, which I think is really important, is that if we wait until the drugs get to the border, it is too late.
Nearly 107,000 Americans died from drug overdoses in a year, and 2/3 of them were from fentanyl. So many of you have reached out about this and know how important this story is, so we will continue our reporting.
Now, I appreciate
Richard
you bringing
Irvin
that,
doesn't
Amari.
like talking about
And let me
his
say
real
this.
record.
Amari was telling me something the other day, and, I don't know, because, he knows how to get things. He was saying, between this time and this time, thousands of people, some decent sounding numbers, have been looking at these shows. I don't know, I can't tell. He said, well, that's just on this hit. I say that to say this. That was while we was doing some things, talking about the whole drug initiative, trying to keep people alerted to this. And then, like I said before, then you had people from outside of the community saying that people don't really watch what we do. We already know that's a lie. And when the politician that we had talked to was talking, he already knew it too. But the people made him think something else. That's why we were doing it, and that's why we still doing it. Because people are dying. And just because you got one or two people walking around in the street trying to give out some Narcan, we reach more people sitting here bringing it into people's homes so people can be aware of what's happening to their fathers, grandfathers, and children, and even themselves. And until you Negro politicians start understanding that some of us Negroes are professionals. Some of us do know what the hell we doing. Some of us do know how to address the problems that we are having in our communities. And we don't need no 19-year-old Asian or white or Hispanic telling us what need to be done and how to do it. But that's who you give the money to. Back to Roe versus Wade. Planned Parenthood. They can come in with brand new buildings and don't nobody be on staff but them. But ain't no clients but you. How? In your community. Because the damn politician let them have the land, let them have this, let them have that, but yet and still don't nobody get hired. Everybody keep dying, not because of Planned Parenthood, but keep dying because others, and maybe some of them too, are advocating that abortion thing and this and that. So you got 38% that commit that type of genocide and homicide. Yeah. But it's just like the dope. The number one thing killing these groups of people now ain't COVID, it ain't the guns, it's this. It's this what the damn politician heard the white folks say, well, we could use the money doing this. And then they go to Springfield and they lie. You know what I'm saying? And all I'm saying, the reason I'm bringing it to you, because that information there, how many of y'all going to take time to look at it? You ain't. Mama called me last night, said if she was looking at one of these shows, didn't intend to, we just ran across it and looked at the whole thing. I said, thank you very much. That way you can learn. That way you can know. And I say this, because these politicians, they take too much for granted. That's why I don't know if I'm going to ever vote for another black politician. It's a waste of energy. Run that thing about this damn casino, man, because we'll be out of here in a few minutes.
Electronic monitoring has become a big part of the conversation.
Run that too. That'll work in case that's what they did.
Works in Cook County. Elizabeth Matthews breaks it down for us in tonight's special report.
In 2021 alone, for example, well over 50 people have been arrested for shooting or murder, all while on electronic monitoring.
They have pointed the finger at us, and we know that finger pointing doesn't work.
I don't think there's another city in this country releasing people charged with murder back into the community on electronic monitoring.
There are a lot of strong opinions about how well electronic monitoring is working in Cook County. But do you know how it works at all?
It's the fact that there's two separate home monitoring programs. One that we run, which has about 2,500 people on it. Then one that the chief judge runs that has, we think, about 1,000 to 1,500 people.
There are still some folks who work in the system who are kind of surprised that we have 2 programs.
Jordan Bolger is an administrative analyst for Cook County's Adult Probation Department, which oversees the lesser-known electronic monitoring program that's part of Chief Judge Timothy Evans' office.
So we're a completely separate department. The courts are separate from law enforcement. So our program is separate. We have a separate population that we're monitoring.
Bolger says the biggest difference between the defendants in each program is their perceived level of risk.
The Sheriff's EM program is designated for higher risk defendants. So the highest risk defendants are recommended for what we call maximum conditions or detention. The lowest risk are recommended to just be released without condition.
Bolger says most of the 1,600 plus defendants in the Chief Judge's program are monitored for curfew violations from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. with the use of a radio frequency bracelet. The Sheriff Department's program uses GPS to monitor all 2,300 defendants in its program 24/7. While the Chief Judge's monitoring program historically has less offenders on it than the Sheriff Department's, and for lesser offenses, that seems to be changing due to 2017 bond reform measures and the local increase in violent crime.
It's being used more for younger weapons possession offenders. So people who are maybe 18 to 30 years old who are charged with unlawful use of a weapon.
It's also being used for those charged with attempted murder. Regardless of that, both programs say about 80% of their populations do not commit another crime while out on electronic monitoring.
I'm calling from the monitoring center.
While the programs operate separately, they do use the same vendor for monitoring services. That's required per Cook County's procurement policy. Even with that shared resource, Bolger says the 2 programs still don't talk to each other that much, if at all. So who decides who's enrolled in which monitoring program?
Judges pick who goes on home monitoring. Some have it, they pick them and then they hand them off to the sheriffs to monitor them. But then there's many other ones where the judges pick them and then they themselves also monitor them, in-house with their pretrial service people.
What kind of charter monitoring center I have?
One reason you might not know much about Chief Judge's program is because the Adult Probation Department just began posting detailed information about it on its website a few months ago.
We determined that instead of kind of perpetuating the narrative that we're hiding something or that we're a black hole and nobody knows what we're doing, I think the environment had changed so that it became more palatable or there was more desire to make this information public and to show that we're not hiding anything.
Bolger adds most jurisdictions in the U.S. typically only have one electronic monitoring program, and it's usually run by the Chief Judge's office. He also says that Cook County is discussing the possibility of combining the 2 programs into one. Elizabeth Matthews, Fox 32, Chicago.
Now, anybody could tell you, it's ridiculous. Now they just figuring out that maybe they need to combine them. Yeah, it's about time they figure that out. Now we can step into something. Some of you already know, and this might even be redundant. There's a personality, there was a personality, he's now our ancestor. He's in the afterlife.
Go to blackdemographics.com.
Kevin Samuels. We're going to play a couple of clips and say just a few words in salute of his life. He had his position. People have their position. You don't have to agree with it. But he had some things to say, and a lot of truth was shared. So we're going to use these 2 pieces, and then we're going to close out with Bishop Jakes, and I hope they let us use that without violating copyright with him and Steve Howard, because there's a piece of information there that applies to what we're on. So these pieces here, until next week, well, I'll say that until we comment on these 2 pieces. All right, Brother Amara.
What's going on? Okay, you guys have asked me to respond to the notion that there are not enough fit black men. I don't need to respond. Go to blackdemographics.com. The facts are all there. The bottom line is 9% of black women earn more than $75,000 a year. So I don't care where your degrees or whatever, it comes into the outcomes. 54% of black men are single and childless, 61% in the middle class, 2.5 million black men in the upper class. Black men are doing just fine. We don't have enough fit candidates to be wise, according to the black men that you say that don't exist what they want from a mate. You can have your feelings, but the facts, data, statistics don't line up with what you are saying. But I challenge you to prove me wrong. Let's debate it on the facts. Peace.
All right, man. What it do, man? It's your boy Boss. Make sure you follow Boss and Twin.
With Kevin Samuel, but I don't need young blood to do the commentary. I can do that myself. So, but this piece is coming up. This piece here is another piece, and there's a lot of controversy about the brother, about some things he would say. But I mean, that's all part of what social media does. That's what happens now. But a lot of people, you know, on the radio thing the other night, somebody called in and she had called social media and complained about it and this and that. But, you know, and then for whatever reason, Omari, I saw that piece about the casinos, but okay. There's another piece with Calvin.
If you leave more...
But do it anyway, since you're there. It don't matter what order. Now this piece here is a piece that, you know, you might pick up a little something out of. A little wisdom. Might help save you and your...
It is not what you leave to them that makes them great. It's what you leave in them. If you leave more to them than you leave in them, they will run through everything you left to them.
Yeah.
But if you leave enough in them, you don't have to leave so much to them because they can go out there and make their own way in life.
Cool. I'm glad you said that, because now they ain't getting nothing.
Now, sometimes, you know, we'll take those small clips, and TikTok seem to be good at that, having those small clips, and we'll shoot them in there because part of what we want to do is just not bore people with information, but give people information to think about. Because sometimes by thinking about the information, it triggers something in your mind. That piece there, brother. Run that piece.
A pleasure in doing shows like this because I know it triggers certain black women. I know they do. I know some of them get pissed. I've heard women on YouTube saying things that they don't watch the show end to end. And I'm not gonna, and that's not gonna change anything because there are far more women and far women who are listening. And who are the recipients? The women who listen end to end and are saying, "Well, you've changed my life. You've helped me look at this way or that way." Those women are benefiting. And guarantee when those women come into contact with men doing something, they all benefit. We're better off working with each other, trying to understand one another. You know, none of us are perfect. Certainly not me. I ain't shit. I got a lot of problems. It's like anybody else. We all got issues. But just like Ice Cube, when the brother steps up to do something, support. Find ways to support. Even if you have an issue with something it's doing, can you find 4 or 5 things about it that you like before you start off with the one thing you don't like? Because you cannot keep painting black men in this ain't shit box. They don't all fit there. And brothers are starting to push back and say, no, 51% of us are single and childless and 64% in the middle class. They're here. Can you interact with them? Just in a peaceful, civil way. If you never get married and never have kids, can you have a higher quality of life? Can you just be happy? Can you stop walking through life with your hands up ready to fight the reflection of you, the opposite sex reflection of you? I don't walk through life looking at black women as though they're my enemy. And I would hope that for the black women who this applies, you stop walking through life assuming that black men are somebody to challenge, somebody to overcome, to struggle against. We don't need that.
See, that is that's legacy right there. That one piece, that one clip is a message that could sum up his life. Because what it did, it gave us something that is needed between the Negro man and the Negro woman. And that would help our children, that would help our total group. So we don't have to always look for something to be critical about. Find something that we can sort of like accept and move on. So I salute that brother and his life. And I pray that his soul reaches paradise and he's at peace. Now, Amari, if you got time for this piece about the tickets, we can do that. But if not, we can call it a day. But I wanted to do that, but I understand that there are other things happening. So we just,
I'm Casey
there it
Cronus,
is.
live downtown, where a court has ruled that the city has illegally issued hundreds of millions of dollars in tickets for city sticker violations over the last 10 years. An Illinois appellate court ruled today that state law forbids the city from giving out tickets and late penalties for the same violation exceeding $250. But the law firm that brought this suit against the city, Myron M. Cherry and Associates, says that since 2012, the city has been issuing tickets for city sticker violations that surpass that legal limit. Now, to be clear, city sticker tickets that come with a price tag of $200 are not the issue. It's the potential late fees for that same violation that are. Attorneys that filed this suit say it's often the city's most vulnerable residents who can't afford to pay these fines that have now been forced to file for bankruptcy because of it. One man says he was issued so many late penalties on top of late penalties that it became a vicious cycle, leading to his license becoming suspended.
Those tickets, it went from $9,000 with the fines and fees doubled to over $20,000. I had to file bankruptcy in order to be able to keep my job, to save my job. I did eventually wind up paying it off, but the fact of the matter is most of those tickets was because of no city sticker.
In response, a spokeswoman with the city's legal team says their law department is reviewing the ruling. Live downtown, Casey Cronus, Fox 32, Chicago.
I want you to imagine that for a minute. A damn ticket turned into a bankruptcy. The late fees, $9,000, $20,000. What city, what matter of elected official would have city workers, a bureaucracy that brings that type of misfortune on a citizen, not for committing a crime, other than maybe not having the money to take care of the ticket. So you just keep compounding the ticket and compounding the ticket, and nobody in government can see that's unfair. Now that went for a 10-year period per se. But it's the same thing happening today. You understand? Same thing. And part of what was going to be in that piece about the casino, and we'll get to that next week, is that part of the issue is that the aldermans think that this administration is pushing too fast for this casino deal they got coming because of the $40 million. And the location in this and another. And like the man say, it feels like the meter deal. That big mistake that was made is about to be made with the casino thing. But then again, Lightfoot was probably working for Daley 10 years ago. She probably had something to do with that. Just like she's in the position she's in now with the casinos. We have to keep this connected because we see what this administration has already done with those damn trap tickets 6 miles over the speed limit. See? Red light camera tickets again. They done made so much money since her administration took place on this ticket thing, that the little fake she did about giving amnesty to people, that wasn't nothing but a trick. Because she just done rip people off. And now the court's saying that's what you did. You ripped them off. So why don't they stop using those type of techniques to rip people off and figure out better ways to help people have a better quality of life? Next week, we'll probably get to the one that they're talking about, that $60 you keep paying because the car didn't come with a bracket on the front. for the license plate and you keep getting them tickets, where they coming up, they discussing a law that you might not need a front sticker. Until next week, we might get to that. If not, look it up for yourself. Alafia, peace, and good health.